Hi, Dr. Ariane from the Movement Paradigm. Today I'm going to talk about one of my absolute favorite topics, which is breathing is your superpower. So we're going to talk about some really quick tips that you can integrate to improve your airway, to improve your breath, to improve your health and your life. So let's get into the details. So we want to remember that you breathe 25,000 times a day. So we do more of breathing than we do anything else. It's our first motor program, but it is something that we do consciously and unconsciously. So we have so much power over our breath. And we don't want to simply just think about breath as how much oxygen we're taking in. We also want to think about this amazing gas exchange that happens and ultimately looking at how well we are able to maintain CO2 or carbon dioxide in our bloodstream. So the first thing that we can do is actually called a controlled pause test. Now you do want to only perform this if you feel safe doing it, if you're under the care of a medical supervision. You want to make sure that you're doing this if it's appropriate for you. But I will explain the test briefly. So the controlled pause test is where you are going to take a natural inhale through your nose and out through your nose. So it would look like this. So just nice, relaxed inhale, exhale. As soon as you finish the exhale, you're going to hold and you're counting until you can determine what that amount of time is before you have your very first urge to breathe. When you do that, you want to think about breathing through your nose again, so taking another inhale. But how you're testing this is really identifying how much time it takes after you've taken your inhale, your exhale, you've waited to that first urge to breathe, and you want to think if there's under 10 seconds, then it is considered a severe breathing impairment that should be evaluated. If it's between 10 seconds and 20 seconds, it is still a significant breathing impairment. And really we want more towards that 20 to 30 seconds, really ideally above 30 seconds is our sweet spot, indicating that we have optimal breath and airway function for life and for health. So maybe you're experiencing obvious breathing issues. For example, maybe you have sleep issues, sleep apnea. Maybe you have congestion and chronic allergies and sinusitis. Maybe you are having chronic pain, such as neck pain or back pain. Maybe you have anxiety or depression. All of these can be associated with breathing difficulties and airway dysfunction. So the first thing I would recommend is assessing your breathing as we just went through. But beyond that, there are so many things you can do to optimize your breathing. Let's start with the basics, which is just understanding diaphragmatic breathing. So when we are breathing diaphragmatically, we are thinking of breathing in through the nose. We have our tongue at the roof of our mouth, gently touching the back top teeth. When we inhale, we're expanding our abdomen. So expanding 360 degrees. So not just a belly breath. We use that term and it's very, very helpful, I think, to visualize it. But it's not just the belly. It's actually getting rib cage expansion laterally in the back of the rib cage. We call that posterolaterally. So we want full expansion. So think like a canister. And as we're breathing in, we're getting this really nice pressure. That's what that is when we say belly breath. We have intra-abdominal pressure that's going down all the way to the base of the pelvic floor, and that's what creates core stability. That's what creates really optimal function and force transfer, because it even influences our posture and definitely our mood and nervous system. So we want to understand what basic diaphragmatic breathing is and should look like. We may not always have full expansion, but we do want to feel like that is the pattern of breath all of the time, 20 to 25,000 times a day. There are a million breathing variations: 4-7-8 breathing, box breathing, resonant breathing, coherent breathing, lots of wonderful options, but we do want to understand the basic fundamental pattern. Okay, now you've assessed your breathing. So breathing in through the nose, breathing out through the nose, determining, is your chest moving first? Is your abdomen expanding? You've done your controlled pause test. Now you have an idea, how hard is breathing for you? Do you have a lot of pelvic floor issues? You're never able to get your breath down to the pelvis. this is where we might look a little bit further. So we can have lots of different airway dysfunctions. We can have things such as small nasal valves. We can have a deviated septum. We could have an actual small airway. We can have jaw misalignment. So let's say the jaw is pressing back or protruding, contributing to a shift in our airway. Enlarged tonsils, adenoids, sinus issues, lots of potential areas for obstruction. So what we want to think about here is there are some very basic things you can do, and I have my little toolkit here. So one of the things I always recommend is something called Xlear. So this is something that is a great nasal spray. It's saline and xylitol, so it kills bacteria, but it also helps to keep the nasal cavity moist. So we want to think about breathing in through the nose because it dehumidifies the air, it filters the air coming into the body. So I recommend using this twice a day. This is wonderful. If, as needed, you are exposed to things like allergies or sickness and illness, this is where you'd want to think about using the rescue. So this is a shorter term use, but it has oregano, it has parsley, it has xylitol. It's really, really powerful to help kill bacteria, but also, again, to keep that nasal cavity moist and healthy to protect our immune system. The next thing I strongly recommend is something called mutes. So these are something that can help open up the airway approximately up to 38%. So this is to place in the nose, especially during sleeping. And what it does is essentially just opens the airway from the nasal valve perspective. It opens the airway as if you were just spreading your nose apart. And it can be such a powerful way to improve sleep and improve breathing without going any step further than that just yet. Okay, especially if you are mouth breathing. You wake up in the morning, you have a dry throat, for example. You're constantly getting sick. So this would be a really good start for you. There's different sizes, so you can just do a small, a medium, a trial pack, whatever seems to work, and then they are adjustable, so it just goes right inside of the nose here. Okay, so if that goes really well, then you can potentially expand to something like mouth taping. This is, of course, a trend right now, so I want to be mindful that this is not a trend per se, but it can be an evaluation. So you don't want to just necessarily go to sleep right away with something taping your mouth. But what you can do is once you've evaluated the nasal valves, and let's say you feel immediately better, that's wonderful. If you don't, you can use something like a Breathe the Right strip. That's another variation. Just make sure it's in the right location. Pros and cons, of course, with everything. It can sometimes irritate your skin. So just make sure that you have it in the right spot and you're checking your skin. If you've assessed that was a huge improvement, you could try mouth taping. You just place it vertically like this. This is Nexcare. You can do a sensitive skin, works really well, and you can do that to see if you're able to tolerate it during the day first. If you have a severe nasal obstruction or airway obstruction, you may not be able to tolerate it and it's not safe. So it's really important to make sure you're being very objective about your analysis, and also know that there are great resources to have your airway evaluated and be able to take that next step to know exactly what's happening in your specific airway. So just know breathing is the foundation for life. It's the foundation for movement and overall health. If you're not breathing properly, if you're not nasal breathing, then so many implications can exist based on poor health status. So you want to make sure that you're assessing, you're being objective, you're finding the right support to help you on your breathing journey. And that could look very different for many people, whether that's an orthotic, that would be mouth taping, that may be getting their deviated septum repaired. Know that there's so many possibilities, there's so many options, there's so much hope for improving your breathing. So don't settle for, I'm just a mouth breather, or I just snore at night. Make sure you think about that in terms of the implications to your health. So if this was helpful, make sure you give it a like, give it a share, and of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Movement Paradigm, for weekly tips on mindset, nutrition, and movement. And please reach out to us for any help with your breathing, your health, your movement. We would love the opportunity to help you in your journey. Thank you.